The idea of writing a mini-manuscript text summary is to find the most important points that explain what the authors did and what they found, as if you're telling a friend about a paper that you've just read to see if there's something they might be interested in. Let's take an example paper and work through it together. You can download the example paper that we're referring to using the link below this video. That way you can follow along and see how we transform an original research paper into a mini-manuscript text summary. Step 1. The methods. What we're aiming to do here is take the paper and turn it into a recipe, the bare essentials of how the experiment was carried out. It's important not to get bogged down with very specific details that aren't required to understand how the task works. In the example shown here, the methods section takes up a whole page, but a lot of that is only required if you're planning to fully replicate the original study. To understand what the authors did, you actually only need a fraction of it. You can see here that we've highlighted the parts that we think are most important, and then used them to write our summary. So from this study, we would write down that the authors took people with and without autism spectrum disorder and asked them to do a computer-based visual task where they had to search for a target letter in a ring of other letters. Let's call that the central visual search task. Participants also had to detect the presence of a grey shape that was presented on half of the trials. Let's call that one the detection task. The difficulty of the central task was varied by changing the number of non-target letters to create sets of 1, 2, 4 and 6 letters. And that's all we'd write for the methods section. There would be no need, for example, to include the exact measurements and equipment settings like the number of trials, the screen resolution, the make of the computer and the exact shade of grey that was used. These are things that the reader can get from the full paper if they decide that the study is relevant to them. OK, now the results. Back to our recipe analogy. Now we want to know what came out of the oven. We're looking for an overview, the main facts that sum up what the authors found. Again, you can see what we've highlighted in our example paper. We would then summarise these points and write something like, search task. As the difficulty of the task increased, reaction times and error rates went up. There was no difference between the groups. Detection task. Overall, detection rates and sensitivity for the shape decreased as the difficulty of the central task increased. However, in the autism group, this pattern was not seen. Detection rates and sensitivity remained high at all levels of central task difficulty. There was therefore a significant difference between the two groups on both measures at the highest difficulty level. The autism group showed a higher detection rate and sensitivity. Group and task difficulty had no impact on response bias. And that's it. The summary shouldn't contain anything from the author's discussion or the implication of their findings, but feel free to comment on that in the discussion thread below each paper. So give it a go. Remember that you and other users can edit your summary, so it doesn't have to be perfect first time.